Hi there and welcome back to Plow and Pantry. This is Alicia and I thought I would bring you along for a little bit of a hodgepodge of just different things that get done as far as like chores on the homestead. This was actually over like maybe 2.5 weeks ago, and I started out the week here. It was kind of a cold day, but I needed to get some potting up done. So I've got one, well, I potted up several trays, but the one here has tomatoes and some herbs on it, and I'm trying to use up some old pots that are on there last year. They're not my favorite ones. I have mentioned my favorite ones are from Bootstrap Farmer, and I can link them below. But as far as my method here for potting up, I like to fill the pots about halfway with soil and then put my seedlings in, and I do often put like 2 in a pot like this, and then I kind of hold them up while I stuff more soil in them. And I just find, for me and my coordination level, I find that the easiest way to support my stems so that they grow healthy and still have room for the roots to grow through the bottom, and just get them together that way. So I was potting those up on this particular day. I was also using water from a pitcher from inside. This is a potting bench that my husband made me that has a hose that attaches to it, but we still have our hoses at this point unattached because at this time we still were expecting several freezes, and so we still have the outside faucets covered. So once I had the potting up done, let's see, the next day I was canning some roast from the store. I found a really good deal on some beef roast, and instead of putting it in the deep freezer, I wanted to have more shelf-stable meat, so I'm canning it. And this amount does not, I think it made 4 or 5 jars, and so I just use my digital pressure canner for this. But I trim it. I added, let's see, I have a video that I can link for you. It's not the beef video, it's the raw packed chicken video, and it is the same process though. So if you want to see like a start to finish on just raw pack canning meat, I can link that for you because it shows the whole process, and it's the same process, the same processing time. It's the same way. So here I'm putting them in quart jars. I'm chunking up like 1 to 1.5 inch pieces. You stuff them really tightly in the jars. You don't have to add water or anything. This is an approved canning method from the National Center for Home Food Preservation. And I just get them into the jars. These are pint jars that I'm doing today. And it's just, again, a great way to take advantage of a good meat sale. So I get them into the jars, and then I need to wipe the rims with vinegar is my preferred rim wiping medium. Helps cut through fat and all that stuff. And then I get on my lids and bands. The bands go on fingertip tight. So not too tight, not too loose. You want air bubbles to escape, but you don't want to trap everything in and make your jar explode. And I get them into the canner along with my extra vinegar because I have really hard well water, and vinegar in the water helps keep it from getting like a white film type thing on the outside that I have to scrub really hard to get off. So I get those in the canner, get my extra vinegar in, get the amount of water in. For this canner asks for 8 cups or 2 quarts for every load that you do. And that is what I put in here. And then it's because it's pints, it's 75 minutes. And this is them coming out later that day after they had processed. And this is where that's why I need to make a canning mat right here, which I will do later in the video, because I'm putting it on a cold counter, which you don't really want to do. I did start a flat of zinnia seeds. I want to do like a whole zinnia hedge on the side of my house where I don't have anything but grass and a garage wall. So I was just getting those started. And then I also started the freeze dryer growing with some strawberries and some zucchini. So freeze dried strawberries and apples are my kids' favorite snacks. And when it's not, I don't have strawberries or I haven't just bought strawberries, I just buy the frozen sliced ones at the store. It cuts out some work for me. I pour them onto the tray straight up frozen, and they're already sliced, which saves me some work. And I just spread them out kind of close to a single layer as I can. And it works really well for me. And then I also did some zucchini on this day, and I just sliced the zucchini with my mandolin slicer really thin and straight onto the trays. And I think I've done a freeze-dried zucchini chip video before with like different flavors and taste testing it. And today I had heard that just like ranch seasoning was really good, and I do have a good homemade ranch seasoning. And so I sliced these straight onto the freeze drying trays, and then I tossed them with my homemade ranch seasoning mix. And then I spread them out onto the trays in a single layer. You typically don't have to do single layers when you freeze dry, but I like to, especially with the zucchini, because the zucchini tends to be hard to keep dry. It wants to reabsorb all the moisture in the air really fast. And so I wanted to put them in a single layer just to make sure that they got as dry as possible during this process and didn't want to have any moisture hiding between layers. So 2 trays of strawberries and 3 trays of zucchini chips, and they did come out delicious. The ranch flavor was a winner, and I will make them again. I have 1 quart jar sitting on my counter still to snack on. But I might grow an extra zucchini plant in my garden this year so I can do more of these, because zucchini is not typically something I plant a lot of, usually just enough for zucchini bread. So I also wanted to tackle the front porch, and this is how it looks before. And I just got out my pots that I like to put on the steps and stuff. And this year I just bought a bunch of flowers. I got some from our high school's FFA sale. I got some from the local nursery. I got some from Lowe's. And normally I have a big plan, like I'm looking for specific plants or something similar, and I've got a whole plan of what's going in what pot and where it's going and all that. And this year I decided to just decide where I was going to put my pots and go to the store and get a bunch of flowers. I was slightly mindful of the flowers only in that I knew that like I need a couple big ones for the center of the big pots and small ones for my small pots on the steps, stuff like that. But other than that, I was just doing something different for me this year, which is just to kind of get pots ready, get them laid out where I wanted them, and then put the plants around here and there and rearrange and just decide what I wanted to go here, what I wanted to go there, how'd that look, swap a few, stuff like that. So it turned out pretty well, I think, and I think I just did it this way this year because I didn't have an idea of something I really wanted to do. Normally, by the time spring rolls around, I have something in my head that I'm like, oh, I really want to do this, and I really want to do that, and so I kind of planned for that accordingly. And this year I was like, I just want the flowers and the pots out front. No big plan. And so that's what I did. I just bought flowers and I just put them around, and I ended up liking it that way. Who knows if I'll do it this way again in the future, but I thought it turned out pretty good. This is the view. I should move the hose out of the way. For now, those pots, the centerpiece, especially by the door, will grow quite a bit taller, and so that will look different in the future. Then it was time to head out I actually had lemon balm and oregano already growing like full size in the garden. So I got those trimmed and into the dehydrator. I was trying this new tool I found at Aldi to like strip herbs off their stems, and I was not highly impressed by it. I will keep it around to try again for time, but I didn't really feel like it did well with the oregano, and you just don't need it for the lemon balm. But I do want to try it again with a different herb that's a little bit stronger. So I got these into the dehydrator, and then they were in there overnight. So there I am in my pajamas the next morning getting those into jars. That's the lemon balm in the larger jar and the smaller jar of oregano. They both have room to add to. Those are things that you kind of do all summer. I harvest the herbs, dry them or freeze dry them, use them fresh, whatever. Just kind of all summer long. You trim them back and they flush out again, and that's just how that works. So got the start for the year on those herbs ready to go. So that night, the night before, I had also had some chicken bone broth going in Instant Pot. And so it was going to be finished late, and I didn't want to stay up late dealing with it. So I just left the Instant Pot on warm overnight. And so I was straining it out the next morning to make chicken broth. I think I mentioned in my pantry video, my pantry clean out tour video, that I had this going on upstairs. Of course, I got dressed before I did that video, but got the chicken broth in the digital pressure canner, and later that day it was ready to come out. And I don't know why jars coming out of the canner is something that's pretty to me, but I always love to see the jars come out of the canner. It's just one of those things that makes my heart happy. Next up, I was doing some garden work. I could not get my camera to focus. It's time to prep the garden. Pretty much all week, here and there, I was doing this. I was getting the edge trimmed, weeds pulled, just getting areas ready to plant. I had mulch to lay down. I'm still not done. I try to go out anytime I have a few hours. I just go out to the garden and start to get stuff ready. It is almost time to plant, which is super exciting, but I often feel like the prep work for the planting is more work or more stressful than the actual planting. So I'm glad to be almost to the end of this part. I also take my bucket of weeds there to the chickens to dig through. If I find grubs, I put them in there too. They just enjoy going and digging through that. It kind of entertains them. And then I was doing a little bit of sewing. I was working on canning mats. I cannot find canning mats I like. I mentioned that in a previous video, and so I was sewing some myself. I couldn't decide on the fabrics I wanted to use. I think the one I was working on right there had chickens and chicken wire. I couldn't decide and narrow myself down, so I actually made a couple of these. I have them like sandwiched and quilted and ready. I just need to bind them still. They're not completely finished, but they will be by the time canning season rolls around, which will be here before we know it. But I was just happy to get some cute ones done on my own that will fit my counter well and that I will enjoy looking at. And that is where I'm leaving off this video for the week. Thank you so much for joining me here, and I hope to see you guys on a future video. Let me know in the comments what you're getting done on your homestead or in your garden or your sewing projects or whatever you're doing right now. What has you busy these days?